Okay, so on Friday, we discussed two different forms. We discussed standard form, which is your numerals. So it's like 43 and 12 hundredths. Okay. Then we talked about word form, which is in words. So today we're going to discuss a new form, and that's going to be called expanded form. Okay. Or expanded notation. I'm sorry, you've done expanded form before. We're going to do expanded notation. Let me pull this. Okay. So there's two ways to show expanded notation. Okay. One of these ways is by decimals, and one of these is by fractions. So we're adding decimals or fractions. So here's our number, guys. We have to remember this place value chart again. So this is our hundreds place, our tenths, our ones, our tenths with the TH, our hundredths, and our thousandths. Okay. So in our hundredths place, we have a 6. So that's the same as 600 or 6 times 100. In our tens place, we have a 7, which is the same as 70 or 7 times 10. In our ones place, we have a 4, which is the same as just 4 times 1. Okay. So we can say this is like 600, 700, or 70, sorry, and 4. My mind wasn't working right. In our tenths place, we have a 2, which is the same as 0.2. So to write this as a decimal, we'll do that first. We have 2 times 0.1, okay? Or 2 times 1/10, since it's in our tenths place. In our hundredths, we have a 9, so that's the same as 0.09, okay? And that's the same as 9 times 0.01, or 9 times 100th, since it's in our hundredths place. And then lastly, in our thousandths place, we have a 1, so that's the same as 0.001, or 1 times 0.001, or 1 times 1,000th, since it's in our thousandths place. Okay, that's how you show it in decimals. To show it as a fraction, okay, our whole number and our hundreds, our tens, and our thousands place, it's just going to stay the same. So we still have 6 times 100, 7 times 10, and 4 times 1. Okay? But now we have a 2 times a tenth, and we know that there's another way to write 1/10. Let's 1 over 10 to show 1/10. We have 9 times 100th, and we know that 1 over 100 is the same as 100th. Okay? Lastly, we have 1,000, thousandth, so we have 1 times 1 over 1,000, because that's 1,000th. Okay. There's 2 ways to write this number, like we talked about before. We can go ahead and write it standard. So standard form, I'm taking the numbers and writing in standard form. That's a decimal. And then in word form, we have 674, or 674. So we have 674. Okay. And then what do we put when it's time for us to go into our decimal parts? Okay, when there's a decimal, we put and. 674, and then we have 291 thousandths. So we have 200. Okay, so I took this number from standard form and wrote it into word form. Now I'm going to write it both other ways, but I have expanded form, or expanded notation as a fraction, and expanded notation as a decimal. So all I need to do is take our decimal form for decimals and our fraction form for fractions. So you remember that expanded, I'm going to write it up here. So we know that expanded form was like 600 plus 70. So here's expanded form. So expanded form would be 600 plus 70 plus 4 plus 0.2 plus 0.09 plus 0.01. Okay, like this right here. That would give us our expanded form. We want to do expanded notation. So as a fraction, let's look at our fraction line. Okay, we have 6 times 100. And to group that as one section, we're going to put parentheses around it because that's how we group things. And then just like this, we're going to add it to our next group. So for fractions, we have 7 times 10. I'm taking that from right here. And then we have 4 times 1. So we're going to add it to 4 times 1. And then we're going to add it to 2 times 1 over 10. And we're going to add it to 9 times 1 over 100. And then we're going to add it to 1 times 1 over 1,000. And that's our expanded form as fractions. Okay, and now we're going to do expanded notation as a decimal. This is kind of blurry. Okay, so I'm going to take that decimal line, that like maroon line up at the top, and write this as a decimal. Let's do it. Okay. So it obviously starts off the same. We have 6 times 100, 7 times 10, 4 times 1. Now this is where it changes. So we're going to look at the decimal side. So we have 2 times our 0.1, our 1/10, plus 9 times 0.01, plus 1 times 0.001. Okay, so that is how we write a number in expanded form, standard form, word form, expanded notation with fractions, and expanded notation with decimals. Who knew there were so many ways to write a number? So now we're going to practice writing it in expanded notation for fractions and for decimals.